Welcome to Prima Donna News, where we give unbiased commentary about trending topics, as well as expose the propaganda surrounding Robert Kelly. Make sure to hit the like button, share the content, and ensure all notifications are on all in order to get all notifications from our channel.
Okay, most people that follow me know that I'm a survivor of domestic violence. Pain that I had every day when I wake up was from that. I stalk his page, y'all. I swear to God, he's gonna call 911 and be like, "Why is Drea Kelly?" I'm like, yeah.
She's gonna be that one's stuck. That one.
Oh.
This is number 3. Psychosomatic trauma. This is another level that I have never seen before.
They're quick to tell women just leave and walk away.
Right.
They don't understand everything that you're taking with you mentally and physically. I know you're afraid, because I was very afraid to even waking up in the morning and not feeling like I need to take 3 Advil to get through. It is a spiritual thing. It is an amazing relief. These are not tears of pain. These are tears of joy. Like you're such a blessing.
I appreciate it.
I'm gonna be stalking him in real life.
Good. I love that.
What happened to Drea Kelly lead lawsuit against Lifetime? See, when you see things like this, it should be very clear why. Because she allowed Lifetime to parade her around with all these so-called bad act witnesses, and all these people had their opinions who didn't read the trial transcripts or any of the paperwork that would indicate her vital role into some of these rules that people wanted to manipulate, and the spectacle she's making out of being a survivor when everybody knows she was very much a volunteer for a lot of the activities that were going on behind the scenes within the music. A lot of people let her get on their platforms and skip around Aaliyah, for an example. Skip around this so-called freaky deaky tape. And everybody wants to also skip around how it's many people that look like individuals in these depicted videos that were clearly manipulated and passed around, in which many people won't also look at the connections behind all of these people that I was easily able to pull out. So even when it came to Robert Kelly's defense team and how they dropped the ball, in my opinion, very early on, it should raise red flags that some of these common criminals on these platforms are very much aware of how they could demand speedy trials and other ways to maneuver in the legal spectrum. Yet when it came to Robert Kelly and them knowing that this man didn't know this and that, and his attorneys clearly wasn't doing their part in debunking the lies, and starting with the grand jury testimonies that clearly started all of these cases that began to pile on. Yet I said all that to say this: as Robert Kelly continues to fight against the corruption and misconduct that was allowed to play out in his case, when we saw an ineffective counsel fail to pinpoint a lot of these allegations that somebody like me could readily pull up and give you some of the connections that the media tried to hide by running with the false narrative that none of these people knew each other, and in fact, turning a blind eye as the government tried to flip clear extortion to an obstruction of justice charge, even though Daryl McDavid, which was one of R. Kelly's co-defendants in Chicago, was acquitted of said charges. It should tell people that if you went back and looked at all of these articles penned by the likes of people like Jim Derogatis, the questions I had early on when it came to the chain of custody and how some of these people running to YouTube can't be trusted when it comes to their story times and giving people these corroborating stories. Now, it didn't take a genius for me to recognize why the government put out there that old boss baby, aka Rashona, was expected to testify, because at that time, I don't believe they were fully aware that she was. However, it was my position that people out here did the most to help garner her into cooperating with the allegations. And even as she got on the stand, we were supposed to ignore that her auntie, who was the main frontlining force in putting these narratives out here, that her niece was on this tape, came back and told us that her niece lied on the stand. Actually, she said she was a fucking lie. So with that being said, as we see R. Kelly continue to lay out why these prosecutors should be disqualified moving forward when it comes to his legal proceedings, it should be clear the levels of corruption that we saw across the board from Chicago to New York, especially when you come to the realization that both of those cases could have been lumped into one, considering they wanted to manufacture this RICO, right? How is it we're going to ignore all of the criminal activity that led to this so-called extortion, so-called obstruction of justice that really exposed these people throwing rocks and hiding their hands, as slow people thought playing games on these YouTube streets would keep people who really want to know the truth from doing their own research and uncovering, substantiating facts that would leave anybody with common sense to know that it was crazy to believe that this girl's auntie reached out to Jim Derogatis, who was spinning all these negative stories about Robert Kelly. The police allowed all this passing around of so-called evidence. The so-called imagery is still available on Google, and we're supposed to keep running with the notion that it's CP. Despite the fact that after all these years, nobody has been penalized for dispersing the so-called CP. And we watched this janky racketeering RICO case be manufactured right before our eyes using these bad act witnesses, janky evidence, piss poor strategies that would give the criminals they say are guilty of things immunity to go into court and shift the blame on Robert Kelly, as people kept the general public distracted by bullshit. Now, clearly, it didn't take me connecting with janky ass people to read all of the information I put before you and screenshot all of the movements that were going on while people thought you'd be distracted, because you wouldn't look at the misconduct that was being allowed to play out in your face. You would continue to run with the fact that some people have a right to not like Robert Kelly for their own reasons because of the allegations, which is their prerogative. But to blindly overlook all of the information that I put out here, that I elaborated on, because people wanted to discredit it because of the format that I give it to you, that's their own personal agendas. Yet at the end of the day, it comes back to these individuals who came out frontlining these accusations, exposing these bad act witnesses, and then hiding behind certain individuals to keep the public distracted. Somebody make this shit make sense. Because last time I checked, I also moved into demonstrating how easily it is for people to slide next to Robert Kelly, which again is his accountability. I can't fault people for feeling like that. Yet at the end of the day, to not then recognize that if he trusted all of the wrong people, if he surrounded himself with all the wrong people, and these people got caught up in some bullshit, yet threw it off on Robert Kelly, it should be no surprise the conflicts of interest we see still going on even now, with everybody asking the $1 million question. Is Bo Brentley, who is Daryl McDavid's previous attorney, is he really working for Robert Kelly? We see the paperwork dropping, so all I can do is tell you to stay tuned, because now we're going to get to the meat of how these bad act witnesses were led into cooperating and all of the empty promises they may have been given by these janky ass prosecutors. So with all that being said, let's get to my disgust when I see Drea Lee on these platforms capping, especially when she knows there's going to be a lot of people, even those that don't like Robert Kelly, that don't like her specifically because of the allegations waged against her that nobody will implore, especially when they skip around the fact that a lot of the rules that were put forth were to respect his marriage. And a lot of the feelings that she feel is because a lot of people didn't even know the man was married, as she and the jump offs were actively participating in threesomes that she had no problem with at the time. But when you hear about your husband having a freaky deaky tape and people may not be privy to you might be on that tape, it should be clear why being a victim might seem the better option, especially when people with common sense will recognize it's a lot of women out here dealing with domestic violence. And it's very sad that the resources to aid these women is very limited. But when you have somebody like this woman who had generational wealth being built for her children, and she teamed up with a bunch of junkies and bad act witnesses to destroy that legacy, she looks like a fucking joke to me. And if she wants to coin herself as a victim instead of being an inspiration, that's her right. But at the end of the day, it's not respected.
So what the fuck I'm gonna keep talking to you motherfuckers for? Like, it is what it is. Like, I got real shit going on behind the scenes. Like, shit that put a motherfucker in jail for 100 years. Like, all this shit that all y'all done enough. Y'all done the work. You know what I mean? I didn't make you. I didn't get on the phone and make nobody witness intimidate or bully or threaten or solicit crimes against people's businesses. I didn't do that. I didn't do that. I didn't do any of that. So most of the time, after y'all had a full day of witness intimidating and bullying and saying fucked up shit about the feds and threatening and putting motherfuckers' pictures and heads and shit cut off and doing all of that, my nights, most of the time, when I'm not doing shit like paperwork for my business and make sure my taxes and shit straight, I'm up recording and putting together different emails that need to go to different people. You know, my job is not to provoke you to do all of these fucking things. My job is to fucking record it and make sure that it get into the hands of the people that can do something about it. I can't do anything to these people.